Why are there lemon gardens or limonaie carved into the cliffs of Limone? As I was walking along the cliffside path in Limone, I kept seeing these tall white pillars climbing up the slope. They looked like the ruins of some ancient fortress, but they weren't part of any castle. They were the skeletons of something else entirely, something that once held trees, not soldiers. These were the remains of the Limonaie, the lemon gardens that made Limone famous. And that got me wondering, who came up with the idea of building giant lemon houses into a cliff, and how did they make it work through freezing Alpine winters? The story actually starts in the 13th century when Franciscan monks from Gargnano brought lemon trees to Lake Garda from the Genovese Riviera. They must have noticed the lake's unique microclimate, a combination of mountain shelter and steady sunlight that could coax citrus to grow far north of where it normally survived. But nature alone wasn't enough. By the 17th century, locals had started building the first limonaie, complete with stone walls, sturdy pillars, and terrace steps, all designed to shield the trees from the cold. By the 18th century, wealthy families like the Bettonis had turned these into full-scale operations, including the most famous of them all, the Limonaia del Castèl. A limonaia wasn't just a random patch of lemon trees. Everything about it was calculated. The terraces were carved into the south-facing hillside so they could soak up the most sunlight and block the cold winds from the mountains. Thick stone walls ran along the back and sides, holding in warmth. Tall pillars faced the lake, ready to support a roof of wooden beams and panels that workers would put up in the winter, transforming the open terraces into a giant greenhouse. Sometimes they even lit fires inside to keep the trees warm. Irrigation channels carried water through the gardens, and even that helped regulate the temperature. People wrote about them for centuries. Goethe visited in 1876 and described the sites of rows of square pillars and wooden frames, all built to cover the plants during the colder months. It must have looked strange to see what was basically a citrus farm in the shadows of Alpine peaks. But it worked. By the mid-1800s, the Garda region was producing up to 20 million lemons a year. Limone's lemons, especially the Madernina variety, were famous across Europe, not just for their flavor, but also for their use in fighting scurvy on long sea voyages. It was backbreaking work. Every winter, the panels and beams had to be put in place, and every spring they had to be taken down again. But the reward was worth it. Fruit that grew nowhere else in Northern Europe and in quantities big enough to make it an international trade. Today, most of these gardens are gone, but the Limonaia del Castèl has been restored as a museum with more than 100 citrus trees still growing on its terraces. Standing there, you can almost picture the workers climbing the terraces in the cold, hauling up wood to cover the trees, keeping the life of the orchard alive through the snow and the wind. It's a reminder that these lemon gardens weren't just farming. They were engineering, architecture, and a little bit of stubbornness against nature, all rolled into one. Do you have any other interesting stories of engineering against nature? Tell me in the comments and they might be featured in a future episode. I am Mari and this has been Night Question.